What's up, guys? Ming the Merciless 93 here, and we are back with part 3 of this 4-part series, Sweating John from PokerVIP.com. And where were we at in this video? Why did the video restart? Hold on a second, guys. We just had this aces, right? We had the aces. We were on our ace-king hand up there, which I told you guys to check out. Okay, so we have our ace-king up here. We're obviously just getting away from this king-6 of diamonds down there. I'm going to go a little further ahead. All right, so we have ace-king, and we are 3-betting from the small blind. We get flat called, and again, remember, this is a board texture that's going to heavily favor the guy that flat called, and you don't have the ace or the king of clubs, and you don't have a backdoor straight draw. This is just a check and mostly give up. This hand is not going to play well on future streets, and your opponent's going to be able to abuse you in position. This hand just firmly goes in the check fold range. So hopefully we check. No, we decide to bet, which is just going to be too many bluffs. We're just going to splatter ourselves across the pavement too often here. We get called, and fortunately for us, we get about the best card in the deck. Pretty close to the best card in the deck here. It's better than an ace because he has more aces up than he does kings up traditionally. So the king is better, and the ace of diamonds in our hand being able to maybe rep the nut flush draw on the river again would fold a little something. Probably never happening. I mean, let's be honest here. No one's ever really going to fold much. So the suit is slightly inconsequential. We'd probably rather not have the ace of diamonds in our hand here so he could fold ace X of diamonds on river, like if he has ace 8 of diamonds or something like that. Yeah, very few of those combos. But nonetheless, pretty much the best card in the deck, so we're going to go ahead and bet, and your sizing is going to be like 250. Bet bigger. Bigger, 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 bigger. Go bigger. Go bigger. Make it bigger. No, make it bigger. Bigger. There you go. That's what's up. Oh, God, he just went crazy. I don't know if we can make it this big. I think that big is just a little perhaps overzealous, John. Perhaps overzealous. I do like it bigger though. But don't tell the ladies I said that. All right, yeah, so we're going to 3-bet. We get 4-bet. That was the ace-queen combo. And we have 5-4. We played that hand in the last video. We got 5-4 of clubs here on the old button. All right. All right. Looks like this video is going to be coming to an end, and we are going to be playing from the next video. So I'm going to have to fire up the second video here for 1 second. We have a few different parts to watch. We've got ace-king again. We're going to go ahead and raise that one up. And it looks like we are going to go to the second part, guys. We're going to go to the second part. So let me get this up. This should take us right to the ace-king. It looks like we did get called in position, and we are just going to check and fold on that board texture. Not much else for us to do. We have ace-9 and ace-4 suited. I like a 3-bet with the ace-4 suited or a fold. Either would be perfectly reasonable, and we're definitely raising it up with the ace-9 of spades. And then raising it up with pocket 10s on table 4, folding 10-5. There's a lot of action. This is fast. I think if we do this in the future, maybe we could cut it down to 2 tables so we have a little bit more room to talk, whatever else, but that's why the pause feature is good. And I trust that you guys out there are smart enough to follow along, even if I'm not. So we're just going to call here with our 10s pre-flop and see a flop. Too good to fold. Not really going to get it in well if we're shoveling. And just going to go ahead and check on that board. We're ahead of the ace-kings and the ace-queens. And we're losing to the jacks, queens, kings, or aces, which is going to be 24 over the old, well, 24 under 32. But there's 2 players in the hand, which is going to increase the frequency at which we're fucked. And now we're basically just going to be checking and trying to give up. There's a world where you could bet small on this turn, but you're not going to really want to bet more than like $1.20. I think your bet sizing is a little bit too big, and I think this is a better play heads up. because they're going to still have more hands like ace king, and it's not going to be 4 cards out there versus the 2. So I would actually just check, like I said, check give up here, but I don't mind this play if you're heads up, because I do think that there's a ton of combos that are just hands that don't have it, that are going to even give you value like ace king, you know, maybe a worse pair on a rare occasion. So I think that the queen is just a really bad card. Like a queen or a king or an ace are the 3 cards that you don't really want to do this play on in the deck. I don't mind if it's a jack. I don't mind it as much just because they have less jacks in their range, but I think that the betting with the 10s is not going to be good on a queen specifically. We kind of talked about that earlier. This, you know, people just have too many queens in 3-bet pots and spots like that specifically. So the queen is just a check fold, but if it was a jack, I would be okay with it, and if it was heads up, I wouldn't hate it depending on the pre-flop action. Okay, we have a big pot up here, so we are going to go back to this big pot. Let me just scroll back, and we're going to talk about this pocket 9s hand and see where we're at here. So pocket 9s on table 1, guys. It looks like we're going to raise it up under the gun, and we're going to get 3-bet to 450. We're going to be flat calling this, and we're going to get overcalled, which is going to give us a little bit more value there for the old set mining. So pretty standard call pre-flop. Not going to be folding. Please don't fold. We know we got to the flop. We know the story. We know how the story ends. We have a gut shot and a diamond, so we're just going to go ahead and check. Probably don't have 7-9 here. No one really does. And the guy that's 3-betting is basically going to have ace, king, queens, kings, aces. So he has essentially 16 bluffing combos here. You know, some of those combos have ace of diamonds, king of diamonds, or ace, king of diamonds, and then he has overpairs. He also might have a couple of ace, queens or something. And when that guy flats and he bets, I just go ahead and fold. You have the guy behind you that still has a relatively strong range, and he's not necessarily going to fold. And then the other guy is going to have position. Even though we have blockers and a gut shot, it's going to be really difficult here to get the showdown if that guy is any bit aggressive. So I would just fold the flop. And as you can see, we get punished again for calling a little bit too light in spots on the flop where we're unlikely to get to showdown. So I think that's something that I would focus on if I were you, John. It's just you're just there's too many streets where you kind of call with really no way to get to showdown and not a lot of ways to bluff efficiently, and being out of position. So those all are kind of adding up to you bleeding money. And yeah, you're going to maybe fold the best hand here some % of the time, but most of his hands have a ton of equity if they are at the bottom of his range, like even Queen Jack of Hearts, you know, has a lot of equity here. So just, yeah, probably folding on that previous street. Let's go back and see what's happening with King Jack here, since we are playing against our good friend the Nutcase. So we're following along with King Jack offsuit on table 3. He raises it up pre-flop, and I like flat calling here versus 3-betting just because we're going to be able to build a pot when we want to against him, and he's a bit volatile. So we definitely want to reduce the variance against him. And check calling the flop is okay, but I would actually check raise this board. So let's talk about this. Remember when we said that when he's c-betting 5-6 on that 3-spade board, like he literally just had nothing at all whatsoever? This is a type of scenario where we want to check raise for value, because now we know that he's betting here with an insanely wide range. And since he has such a wide range, then that means he's probably going to have any 2 spades. He's going to have ace-4 of spades here. He's going to have straight draws that we crush. He's going to have, even though we have a jack in our hand, and it's the jack of clubs, so that is kind of a bluff blocking card, given that we're blocking hands like queen jack, 10 jack, you know, jack 8, jack X of clubs. That's a lot of bluffs. So that's another good reason for us to check raise, because it makes it more likely that he has some sort of a made hand, or he's got hands that are down in that super air portion of his range. And I want to check raise here, not because we're trying to, I mean, basically it's like this. He's probably betting a 9, maybe too frequently. He's definitely going to have a lot of worse kings, and he's going to have a lot of draws. I mean, if he's got 6-8, if he's got queen 10, if he's got queen jack, if he's got 10 jack, if he's got, you know, even 5-6 here, any 2 clubs, there's just so many hands that can call us that are worse than ours. And even a hand like ace queen with the ace of clubs may decide to call a check raise. So yeah, we're going to fold out the absolute bottom of his range, and there is something to be said for check calling and letting him bluff with something like 2-3 of diamonds, for instance, which is kind of similar to him having 5-6 of hearts on that 3-spade board. So there is a little bit of that. You know, he's big. I mean, he just got, what was it, 9-10-3? He just had like a backdoor straight draw on the flush board, just backdoor, just complete trash. So if he's betting that wide, then I don't mind check raising here, because there's a board like this where we're going to get a ton of value from a ton of hands that are going to be calling. And, you know, yeah, we're going to fold out the stone cold bottom of his range, and there is some value in check calling. And if you were going to check call, then having the Jack of Clubs is a pretty good protecting card. But I think that this guy, there's kind of a balance there. You know, this guy seems so loose to us, and he's just so bananas that I'm assuming we're going to get a lot of value by check raising in this spot, even though we do sometimes run into a better hand. Clearly he can have 7s, 9s, pocket aces, king 7, king 9. Sure, he's going to have value combos that beat us, but if we have the Jack of Clubs in our hand, then we represent a lot of those draws. He has less of them, and I think that we're more likely to just get a ton of value from straight draws that we don't block, and then also 9x and king x that we beat. And he's on the button. So don't forget, this is a dude that's betting so high of a frequency, he probably has a king deuce offsuit in his range here. I mean, if you can put him on king deuce offsuit, king 3 offsuit, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, right? That's 7. 7 times 8, that's 56 kings that we're beating, plus all the other offsuit combos of the, I mean, basically every other gut shot, every other straight draw, all the 6-8, probably has a full 16 combos of 6-8. So, like, the call would be good with a different hand. If I had a 9 with a jack here, I would definitely check call. I think Jack of Clubs 9 makes a lot of sense, because he definitely beats us with King X combos, and we have a combo with a Jack of Clubs that plays well across turns and rivers, and there's less reason. We'd rather let him bluff with his 2-3 of diamonds in that scenario, because our hand is strong enough to call twice, plays okay with the Jack of Clubs across turns and rivers, and it's not a hand that we could check raise for value. But given how loose and crazily he's played, I actually like check raising this type of a combo for value specifically. So I would check raise here to about 13, and if we get in a tough spot, we're just gonna have to play well in a tough spot. You know, you're not always gonna have everything go perfectly. Like, he might 3-bet the flop, and he might just have king queen. We're okay with that, knowing the width of his range. Don't be afraid, don't fear, because mathematically, combinatorially, we've seen how wide he's betting, which means we should be check raising more when we have closer to the top of our range here for the one pair hands. I mean, think about it. You're 3-betting 9s pre-flop. You're going to probably have a mixed strategy with 7s. You might 3-bet. You might flat call, depending on how much he's 4-betting or how crazy he is, how, you know, deep your stacks are, whatever else. So pocket 9 is going to always be 3-betting. Kings are going to be 3-betting. You know, you have a ton of combos here. They're going to be 3-betting. So our value range for check raising is basically going to be 2-pair combos, and then what? Sets and 2 pairs. We have like pocket 7s, and we have king 7 and king 9 and 9-7. So we don't have a fuck ton of those, and we have too many hands that could decide to check raise bluff. But either way, like, from a balance perspective, we're not going bananas with the check raise bluffs. We would do that sometimes because he's betting so often, but I think even against him, like checking turn and then maybe bluffing river, or check raising turn, if he's barreling at such a high frequency, then check call, check raise on the turn as a semi bluff makes a lot of sense, because he probably will call turn, fold river. We can pull off some pretty nice exploitative lines here to kind of make him fold when he's put the most money in with his weak ass range. So I think there's a lot to be said. But in this type scenario, I would much rather have 9x to bluff catch with against his 2-3 of diamonds hands, and I'd rather check raise a combo like this when we're so far ahead of the hands that he's betting, and he's probably just going to be too big of a pot. And if we get into a difficult situation, then that's what makes poker fun, getting into those situations. But I do think we're getting a lot of value. You're just going to have to face, you can't fear that shit. You can't just shy away from, oh, he might 3-bet me, so I'm just going to have to call instead. I think against this type of guy, we're losing a lot of value by not having some of these combos in our check raise range. So the turn card just puts up more draws, any 6, any 8. 6-8 does get there. We're probably just going to check call again on the turn now that we have gotten here. I don't really think that when the card on the turn does complete some of his hands that would be semi-bluffing, even though there's a lot of draws out there, there's a lot of flush draws, there is a case to be made for check raising here for value. I'd probably just go ahead and call at this point. Excuse me. I'm like... So yeah, let's see what happens. We just check call again. And the river card kind of sucks in a sense. Like, first of all, queen 10, queen jack, probably not betting on the river. So his, like, the reason why the queen of spades is so bad is because his backdoor flushes get there. 6-8 already got there. It is good in a sense that king queen is now only 6 combos, but he does have ace king in his range as well. The queen is bad because queen 10 and queen jack stop bluffing. That's the first thing. That's bad. And then 10 jack, at least we have a blocker to that, but that's still 12 combos. So the queen is going to, specifically of spades, reduce his bluffing frequency by a high percentage, because now you can take out all the queen jacks and all the king's men. That's 9 combos of queen jack, 12 combos of queen 10, and then, you know, you're going to increase his value bets by the spade combos that he has and 10 jack, in addition to the 6-8s and everything else that already beat us. And now, unfortunately, the jack of clubs becomes a detriment, because if he just had jack of clubs with any other kicker that wasn't a pair, then he'd probably be bluffing. So unfortunately, we have a spot where we probably have to fold the river versus a big bet. Like, maybe you could call a $10 bet because he's still going to value bet king deuce, and maybe there's a world where this guy is so crazy that he's just value betting 20 bucks on the river with king deuce and king 8 or whatever. So I'm not saying that we're always folding to this guy, but I'm just saying that, like, this is a bad river card because it's going to reduce his bluffing frequency, increase his value betting combos, and we have the jack of clubs blocking some of the hands that would be bluffing. So this is a particularly poor combo. The only way we're really happy here is if he's over value betting the river with kings that suck ass. And I don't know that that's always going to be the case. So we're just going to have to check and pray. He fires off a $23 bet, and we're probably just stuck folding. Yeah, I probably would fold with the jack of clubs in my hand on this particular river. We're really just hoping he has king deuce. Yep. And like I said, even though the guy's crazy, I don't know that he's value betting king deuce in those spots. So unfortunately for us, we get roastified, Rastafarian roastified. Let's put more money in the pot with pocket kings. And I don't know what the hell's happening here with pocket eights. We're just going to fuck off, raise it up with ace jack. And we'll just go ahead and bet more with our pocket kings. I think you can go a little bit bigger there, make it 250. Planning on folding to a shove. Homeboy's probably not ever shoving too much as a bluff in this spot. Certainly not going to be worse for value. And I think you just have to fold here. Having the king of diamonds in your hand is cool, but in this spot I think people are just relatively straightforward, and they're just going to have straights and flushes and all that shit. So I would much rather just go ahead and fold here against a player in these games at these stakes. We're going to take a look at the 10-jack hand. I'm probably going to rewind that in just 1 second after we see what John does with his kings here. But you basically have to say that your opponent is capable of bluffing you here with like a jack or a 9, blocking straights like jack of diamonds, or he's going to end up having just a queen. Okay, so if your opponent can just have queen jack, then clearly you're fine calling with kings with the king of diamonds. But in general, I think that it's okay to fold in those spots because like that's pretty close to like the bottom of his range, and clearly his play is just super whack, right? So it's not the norm. Like, it's just not the common thing that you would expect to see. And I don't mind just being a bit more conservative. All right, we raise it up with 10-jack. We get 3-bet, and we have a clear flat call with 10-jack suited. But we're not super excited about it because it's this super high variance, bro. And we have a very clear check call on the flop. Not really much to be said about it. A lot of equity. Certainly no reason to raise. And he even bet half pot this time. Look at that. That might be a sizing tell. He bet 12 into fucking 18 on queen 5-2 rainbow, and now he's betting half pot here. It also might mean that he just has an ace and he's trying to plug you for value. It's hard to say. Again, unpredictable dudes don't exactly have the most linear of strategies going on. So the turn card is definitely better for us than it is for him. I think we can just go ahead and fold here. Calling twice is going to be a bit on the rough side because we're out of position. We don't really have a way to bluff efficiently. I mean, you're going to, what, a 7 or a queen? And he does have so many backdoor diamond combos that now some of our outs are killed. He has ace X of diamonds. He has king X of diamonds, probably queen X of diamonds. You know, we don't have any diamond blockers. So it's going to be pretty difficult for us to make the best hand. It's not always good. Some of our outs are tainted, and it's going to be difficult for us to bluff because he does have so many ace X or better combos. I assume that he has ace queen and ace king, and I mean that right there is 24 combos as it is, which is kind of enough. Maybe he's got ace 8, ace 9 in a world. Maybe he's a whack job with 10-7. Probably not. You know, it's probably not super likely. But maybe. I mean, he seems to like mixing it up. So against this guy, I think we're just kind of on the plan of check call the flop, and if we hit the turn, amazing. That's our good implied odds call. If he checks back the river, we'll consider, but I don't think this guy's ever checked back a turn. And if we had a different combination, I think there's a case to be made on a different board for check raising. Remember, he's betting so high of a frequency that check raising turns against him is a decent strategy. That being said, again, this is an ace high board in a 3-bet pot, and that's not really going to be the same scenario as check raising the turn in a single raise pot where we're the big blind and he's the button or the cutoff. So I would just go ahead and fuck off on this turn card. I think that it's just going to be too much of the time us bleeding $20 to this dude, and I don't really want to pay this guy 20 funky ass dollars. It's going to be very difficult for us to be bluffing, and our hand isn't always going to be good when we do hit it. It's just the 7 is also relatively obvious, so he might just be checking back all of his ace-x combos, which means the queen is really the only card that gets us a lot of value, and the queen of diamonds is some percentage of the time tainted. So this is just going to be a fold on the turn. And we call, and we brick, and now we check and fold. Maybe John has other strategies, and they're exactly. And this guy is actually capable of checking back a shitbag ace on the river. So yeah, I think that you're just calling in too many spots where you should be doing something else, mostly folding. So there's a lot of things to consider. And on 6-9-7 here, I'm fine just c-betting. I like it. I just make it slightly bigger just because of the board texture. Remember, just betting bigger in this spot is going to aid you because they're not going to be floating as often, and you're going to be more likely to be able to get to showdown. And you don't always have the best hand. It's very difficult for us to get to showdown here. I don't think this is a spot that I don't like. I kind of like bluffing here. He doesn't have a ton of big hearts, and you certainly can. So I kind of like bluffing, but I would bet bigger. Like if you're going to bluff him off of a heart, yeah, like that's the problem there, dude. Like your bet sizing in that spot was just no good. You want to bet much closer to pot. It's very difficult for him to have too many huge hearts there, definitely not the ace of hearts. So even though it might be sort of obvious that you wouldn't size it that way if you were trying to get value, they're not always aware of that. Just make it bigger. I like bluffing there, but definitely bet sizing is a huge deal. We've seen that a few times in the videos where your bet sizing is less than optimal, where you're trying to accomplish a certain thing and you just kind of make it like a cheap bluff, and it just doesn't work because the kind of hands that you're targeting in their range are generally not going to do what you want it to do for that sizing. I'm okay either way with a 9-5. I'm okay betting it without a backdoor flush draw, checking it with a backdoor flush draw. Here we have 2-4. Wait, what happened there? You just called pre-flop? We'll play the 5-9 here first. So we bet the flop, we bet the turn. And I think on the 7 turn, it's kind of interesting. This is probably a value bet, but I think I would still look him up. I don't think I would ever raise here. I think I would just call with a 4-5 blocker and just suck it up when he's got 9-6 or something. I don't really like this raise at all. This raise is kind of crazy. It ends up working out, but I'm assuming that you just had the best hand if it works out there. It's kind of a weirdo thing for him to be doing for sure. Okay, so we have the 2-4 of spades here, and I think you should just basically be 3-betting this hand. We have position, and we have pretty much the bottom end of our range. And the reason why you want to 3-bet 2-4 rather than flat call with it is, like, yes, you could flat call with it, but we're not really happy on really many, if any, boards whatsoever. And how sweet is it when we can take 2-4 and have some low card combos for board coverage in our 3-bet range? But most importantly, how sweet is it when homeboy just folds like some ragged ass like 10-3 of spades, you know? If we can get a bigger spade draw to fold here pre-flop, that's way better for us than letting him see 3 cards. So I would definitely have this in my 3-bet range more often than flat calling for the most part. I mean, you're going to have a mixed strategy with 2-4 suited, blind versus blind. I like 3-betting first and foremost, folding similarly so, and then flat calling the least. I don't really like flat calling that much. Only against the weakest of opponents. Yeah, you're going to have some flat calls. I mean, you're basically just going to have a pretty nice mixed strategy here with 2-4 suited, blind versus blind, but I kind of like 3-betting more than anything. I think you can make a case for bluff raising that board. When you call there pre-flop, you're definitely going to have some ace-jack combos. You don't always have to 3-bet it. You're not always going to have them, so maybe have like, 4 out of the 9. And you could definitely have jack-4 suited. So there's like 5-6, and then you have 9 combos of ace-4. So yeah, I mean, you can have like 15 or 16 value combos there, plus the pocket 4s, like 17, and maybe jack-x of clubs is, I mean, I'm mostly just flat calling with that hand. I'm just trying to think, if I'm going to be bluff raising this flop, what am I going to have? Probably king of clubs 10, king of clubs queen, maybe, or maybe just king of clubs no gut shot, since gut shots play better across turn rivers, depending on calling frequency of opponent. Either way, you're going to have like a crisp, 15 to 20 value combos here. So this is one of the worst hands you'd have. It's also the opposite of the backdoor draws, so it's not really that bad to basically just barrel off in this spot. I mean, yeah, you could have the spade rather than the heart if you thought you were going to get called a bit more often, but in general, you've got a pair. It's not going to show down that well. You're blocking 2 pairs, you're blocking sets, and you're not blocking any of the flush draws that would fold somewhere along the way, on the river, on bricks, whatever. So I don't mind. I kind of like bluff raising with this, so I'd make it like 18 to 22, probably like 22. I like bluff raise. Let's see. Saw this. Going forward. 3-betting with the 8-10 suited is fine. If Come On Fish is really active in spots like this, you could just give up for sure. And we're definitely going to be c-betting. Just fire $8. 6 is a bit too small, but nonetheless it works, so that's good. 6 and 8, anywhere between 6 and 8 is fine there. It's actually not that bad. 6 is actually pretty fine. We're just kind of one and done, so I don't mind it make it, slightly bigger, but anywhere between 6 and 8 is good. Definitely going to be betting the flop. I think your bet sizing here is atrocious. Like this has got to stop. All right, we're going to go back just a slight bit. So, like, look at your bet sizing at $2 on 9, 10, jack. You have 2 pair. It's very easy to outdraw your hand. He can have 2 clubs. He can have a queen. He can have an 8. Those have open-ended straight draws. He can have a jack that is now looking for any card. If he pairs up, he's going to have 5 outs with his jacks. I mean, this is just a spot where betting small is a fucking nightmare. It's a fucking nightmare. This should be a pot-sized bet against this dude. You should literally shovel $4 and like 25 cents straight up this guy's ass. There's just no way in hell we're ever betting half pot. Your hand is vulnerable. You are way ahead value-wise against all of the jack-x combos, blocking all the 2 pairs and the sets. Yeah, he's got 16 combos of king-queen, but maybe he 3-bets them. Maybe he only has queen-8 to flat call because he always 3-bets all of his king-queens. Hard to say. He might not have a full fucking 32 complement of those straights. Not to mention, there's 7-8, 7-8, queen-8, queen-king. There's so many fucking straights, and by nature, a ton of the straight draws if he doesn't have them. Even if he just has like the queen of clubs here, it's just so much fucking equity. We just have to bet big. They just bomb it. This is just a very, very poor bet sizing. I can't stress that enough. Turn card obviously sucks, especially against this guy. There is a world where we could decide to barrel for value specifically because he'll probably call. He probably won't check raise us without an 8. We definitely have some 8x combos, but more importantly, I think that this is a spot where if he's got clubs, he's going to call. If he's got any queen, he's going to call. So even though the board is a 4 straight, if your opponent is calling as wide as jack 3 or jack 5 or jack 6, any of those jack x hands, any of those 10x hands, even though we're going to run into some 8x combos, I would much rather bet here and have to fold to a check raise and bet here and run into an 8 checking back on the river, or bet here and then have him donk the river like a whack job, than to give him equity, because we're still ahead of a ton of hands. A ton of hands. We're still even ahead of 9-7. So there's like jack 7 improves, 8x improves. A portion of his range definitely beats us now, but I think it's really important here to just be betting again for value when he had so many jack X combos, so many flush draws, so many queen X. That's really part of this as well, is that we're going to get a ton of value from flush draws and queen X. That's a really, really big part of it. And he doesn't have queen 8 because he would have check raised the flop with that, I'm assuming. So if he has 8x, then he has just as many queens, and then he has all the jacks that we beat. He has all the flush draws that we beat, and it's just a very clear bet on the turn versus this dude. The only time I would check back here is if he's like super check raise happy, but I don't think we've seen many check raises from him at all. So I definitely would have bet the turn, and now we're just completely fucked. And when he checks this river, I think he could just go ahead and turn this into a bluff. I think that our opponent, if he had a queen, he would just go ahead and be betting. So I actually kind of like a bluff here, and I think that he probably would bet a flush himself. Maybe there's a world where he's super savvy and he goes for the check raise with a flush. Obviously, it's a pretty good spot to check raise in his shoes. So if you were playing against a sophisticated and a good opponent, you're probably not going to want to bet this river too much without specific blockers or something strictly that's awesome going on, because a good opponent knows that you probably don't have that many flushes, and if you're betting Queen X, then Queen King's never going to check the turn. So against a good player, if he can have flushes in Queen King and you cap out at just having a queen, you're going to get check raised here psychotically. So I would just go ahead and get the hell out of Dodge here in that scenario. But in this space against this dude, I'm just going to bet big. Probably overbet. I don't think $5 is going to get the job done, but it does in this case, which is actually fantastic. Anyway, guys, hope you've enjoyed part 3. We're going to be back in just a little bit for part 4. A lot of good strategy content going on here, man. A lot of good discussion. I'm kind of grooving on it. Feeling it. We'll be back in just a few minutes, guys.